Hello and welcome to the final episode in season 2 of Dice Justice. My name is Julie.
And my name is Dave.
And today, Dave and I will be answering some questions that we have from some listeners, which is always exciting. And, you know, Dave and I never did a true question and answer type episode. And personally, I really love these questions. And I might have asked for some, but...
I've wanted to do this for a while, actually, so I'm excited. So I have no idea what these questions are, by the way.
Oh, I know. I didn't want to tell you because I wanted your raw reaction. I didn't want you to be able to think about it because knowing you would have literally a chapter book to some of these questions.
A chapter book?
Yes. There's one specific question that I'm like, oh, here Dave goes.
Are you nervous for it?
A little bit, yeah. Just a little. But it's a question written in gold is what I would like to say. But are you ready for these questions?
Yeah.
And they're all board game related and or Lupin related and or just us related.
There are Lupin questions in there?
Maybe. I don't know. You'll find out.
They're all Lupin related.
They're like,
that's
Lupin
all anybody
needs a
wants to hear
story.
about. Nobody cares about board games. We're just here to learn about Lupin.
Right. Lupin jumps on the table. He's like, meow. Everybody's like, yes, we need more of
the
that.
The moment we've been waiting for. Lupin.
All right. So the first question, and lots of these questions are honestly pretty deep. I was just like, okay. I was thinking maybe, what's your favorite board game? But here we are.
Welcome to the board game hobby. We love digging in deep.
I love that, though.
These topics.
I think that's, that's better conversation.
It is.
As opposed to, what do you do for a living? And I'm all like, what I do for a living does not define me.
Crazy. This weather, can you believe it? It's already...
Yeah, exactly. Or, what's your education level? Yeah. Like, no, this is like, let's talk about board games in depth. And I'm like, some of these words I don't understand. But that's okay.
That's okay.
So here we go. So the first question we have is from our friend Michael on Instagram, and his @ is Bearwin Plays Games. And all of these people's @ and just names and stuff will be in the episode description as a little shout out and thank you for allowing us to ask these questions on our podcast. So that's just exciting in general. But this first question is, do you think that how much you like a game or dislike a game is because you play them so quickly so many times? So I think that this is a 2-part answer for me. So it's yes and no. It is yes, because we played Carcassonne back to back to back because it was a shorter game for us.
So fast.
I absolutely despised the game afterwards. And when we initially went through it, I was just like, ugh. But then prior to doing our rating episode for season 1, we decided to play all the games again.
That's right. Yeah. You did.
And then when I played it, I was just like, oh, this game, I like this game. And I think for Carcassonne, it was, yes, we played that really quick. It became monotonous. And that's why I ended up not enjoying it as much. But returning to it, I liked it a lot. Now when you're like, oh, let's play Carcassonne, I'm like, yes, let's play on the floor so we can get a big map going, And that's why I am going to say, I forgot if that was my no or yes, but that was one side. And then the other side is, I would say that it doesn't affect it because we had played Space Base. And if you want to bring Space Base back to the table, I would say no. Like, that's just a game that we chose. Well, I chose to trade it away. I don't know. The rule book was confusing for me, although I didn't read the rules because you read them for me. But it just wasn't a game that really appealed to what I'm developing a board game taste for. So
yeah, and I believe that the more games we played, the less you would like Space Base if we went back to it.
You're like, that's a valid and fair answer.
It's an interesting question because on a personal level, you are the kind of person that if you don't like something, you want to get it over with.
Yes.
Whether it's food, whether it's games, it's almost as though the faster you want us to play the game or more rounds you want to play back to back, the less I think that you're enjoying it. It's almost like a good game is like a bottle of good wine. Maybe you don't want to have multiple glasses in a row of a really good wine. You want to have like a glass and then have a palate cleanser and then come back to it. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm using.
I like
I'm
fine
no
cheese.
viticulturalist. You know, the term that we used in this 10x10 challenge.
That's true.
But I don't know. I do think though that the more rounds we play of a game in a row, we get to the end and I'm less clear on how I feel about it because it becomes a blur. It's almost like, so when I've read a lot of books in my life, and if I read through a book really fast, I almost feel like I lose out on some of the experience compared to if I read a chapter a day or a couple chapters a day and I have time to think about it in between and piece together my thoughts. And this is just how my brain thinks, by the way, but I have more appreciation when I have time to reflect on it, and then I go back and continue reading rather than just blowing through the book in a couple of sittings. And then it just kind of leaves my brain, whereas it's more likely to stick with me in the long term if I have time to digest it. And I think games are kind of similar because when we play a game once or twice in an evening and I have the whole next day to think about it, what I did wrong in that game or what I like about it, and then I come back to it and I have a more appreciation for it. When we play it so many times in a row, I find myself going toward the same strategies or not really having time to think about what I'm going to do. And then we get to the end of it and I'm like, okay, well, that game was done. I think that was a fun game, but I almost think that if I had time to slow down and appreciate it, my perception of it might be a little bit different. And the one game that comes to mind for that is Five Tribes, because we played through that so fast. I think that game needed to breathe a little bit more. For
you.
Well, yeah, I lost terribly.
You lost.
But I think that I would appreciate it more and enjoy it even more if you and I went back to it, played it a few times.
And then you got some wins.
Yeah, exactly. And Carcassonne is a good example because some games I just don't think are meant to be played back to back so many times because Carcassonne it's no knock against the game, but it's not the most strategically deep game that we've played. It's kind of a lightweight tile laying game. We throw it on the table, we have a good time, but you don't need so many plays in a row of that to appreciate it. I think you can get it out, play it once, have a good time, put it away, and then the next time you bring it out, you remember what you liked about the game. You don't need that much of it packed into an evening. So that's the interesting thing about these 10x10 challenges, because you and I want to get through them pretty quick because we're recording these episodes. We kind of want to stay on the schedule and stuff. But I think I like it more when we're playing a game at a pace of like once, maybe twice in an evening rather than 7 times in a day. Okay, well, season 3 is a new beginning. It is, yeah. So we can test that theory and we can take our time with it. We will. And if it's not back to back, that's okay. So we can see how that goes. And speaking of 10x10 questions in general, we have one from Jamey Stegmeyer, and he asks, of all of your 10x10s, what is the game that had the best first impression after one game, and why? And what's the game for which your enjoyment of it increased the most after playing it more than once? That is such a good question. Thank you, Jamey. So it's hard for me to say because a lot of the games that we have played for these 10x10 challenges are games that I've played before. That's true. But I would say both of mine are actually Uwe Rosenberg games. Okay. The one with the best first impression that we played together was probably Le Havre, because I really enjoyed the flow of that, and it was easy for me to get into, where even after just one play, with those simple turns of just take an action or gather resources, I was really intrigued with the amount of strategic depth that I could see even just with one play. But the one that I think increased the most for me was probably Agricola, because at first that game was kind of daunting and punishing, and I was making some pretty bad moves in our first couple of plays. But as we played it more and I understood the flow of the game and the things that were important in the beginning of the game versus the end of the game and how you kind of shift your strategy and build your farm. I'm still not great at the game like you are, but I think I enjoy it a lot more than maybe we first played it. So those are my two. How about you? I love how you're always so sweet on me. You're always like, oh, you're going to be so great at this game. So it's funny that you say Le Havre, because I initially thought, oh, Dominion, because the first round of Dominion that I played, I was like, oh, I like this game. And then yeah, you did. It was fine afterwards, and I think it's because it was easy to learn that made me like it. But bringing up Le Havre and Agricola, I would say it's Agricola because it was a game that I caught on really fast due to it just being like worker placement for the most part and then completing that action. But then I was excited about it because it resonated with me on a personal level, like the whole farming aspect, the whole like collecting sheep and boar and cows. And I think for me, the reason that
it gave off such a best first impression is because I feel that games should be something that you have fun with somebody, you know?
Yeah.
And so with that, I had fun because I was like, oh, like on my farm back home, you know, I was like, I have goats, they should add goats, like, you know, I was so excited about it, and I was giving you so many stories like, oh, that'd be so cool if like we pretend these are rice fields, and then the cows are actually gonna be like water buffalo, and they're like gonna plow like fields, and then instead of being sheep, it's gonna be goats because I have goats. So it was a whole thing. And then I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with Wingspan too. Because I had so many bird stories, you know.
I've learned so much about you and your history with animals through the games that we've played. I had no idea. I thought I knew you well, and then we started playing Agricola and Wingspan, and lo and behold, you had such specific stories about so many different species of animals.
Yeah, we're gonna get into like space themed games, and you're gonna be like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna be like, shh.
The first time I went to the moon, it was all right.
Yeah, like the first time, I'm like, yeah, the views are okay. But I think that's what I look for a best impression for a game, is because I can tell stories. Like, you know, it's not just game talk. It's, hey, let me tell you about some of my personal experiences while we're playing this game, whether it distracts you or not. And now I just kind of make up my own stories. Like Agricola, I changed it all, you know. I was like, you know what, this is what it's really going to be. And then every time your plants didn't do well, I would laugh at you. You know, it was the whole thing.
It was.
So for them, the second part, it says, what's the game for which your enjoyment of it increased the most after playing it more than once? And for that was Orleans.
Oh, right.
The first round we did of it, I felt tired. Like, I don't know anything about this game. I don't know how I feel about this game. I don't know anything, you know? Then after playing it more, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I do see the Quacks of Quedlinburg things. I do see, like, some Bruges things. I do see different games, and then it made it more enjoyable because then I really understood how to play it. But it was one of those games that I did have to play more to love, and I really immersed myself into the theme, and I started to find things that you wanted to play with, and then I would intentionally take it away before you could get to it, because that's one of my favorite things, is to be directly competitive with you, I guess.
Right.
Where I can directly affect you in some way, and if that's taking something before you, then that is how I'll do it.
Do you think that you would have enjoyed it more had I taught the game to you differently, or do you think it had to do with the game itself? I'm just curious.
Honestly, I think it might have been the game itself, because it had like 1, 2, 3, 4, like about 3 boards. No, technically it was 4 boards you were playing on, because there was that one like town hall board,
right? And
then there was the board that you collected things on. There was that road and bridges board.
Oh, right, with the cheese and the wine and
then you had your own board. So especially with being a new gamer and everything, looking at that, I felt very confused and very overwhelmed. But then when I broke it down and simplified it, like, oh, this board is like your Quacks of Quedlin board, where you're just filling the cauldron. And this board over here with the bridges and canals is exactly like in Bruges with the canals, but you get to choose how you want your canal to like go and stuff like that. So, and then just basically picking the stuff is like most other games where you get to pick the things that you want. And the town hall, you really didn't have to pay attention to unless you wanted to use it, because that was sending resources that way. So it was just a place to store and or use resources.
The intimidating first glance at the table, seeing a table full of stuff. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a space on our table that was unused.
Yes. So speaking of it, just games in general from like beginning to end, then we have a question from Questiny, and they ask, which games has stayed the test of time for you and still remain a go-to favorite, and why? And I personally, right off the bat, do have 2 games, and I would say it's Dominion, because I don't know, we have like every expansion at this point.
We do.
Almost. And so it's just fun mixing all the expansions. And then Carcassonne, because we decided to mix all the expansions as well in that.
Oh, that's true. I think if I'm thinking through my lens of having been in the hobby for quite some time, and games that I initially enjoyed, do I still enjoy them today? Dominion and Carcassonne obvious ones. I still play those and enjoy them today. But the one I like the most that I've played for the longest, I would say, is Castles of Burgundy. That game is still one of my absolute favorites, and I loved it back when I played it for the first time. I love it today. So those are games I would gladly return to at any point in time. And I think that they'll remain in our collection indefinitely, if I had to guess.
See, I think it's interesting that you say Castles of Burgundy because we have replayed a few games, but we haven't replayed Castles of Burgundy.
We've also been busy, getting through these 10 by 10 challenges, but I would, if that's a challenge, would like to invite you to return to that to see, because you became the Castles of Burgundy master.
Like, my mind works with patterns, and once I figured out the pattern, I was like, oh, okay.
You think you solved the game? That's incredible.
Well, speaking of Castles of Burgundy, it was so funny because when we went on our little mini adventure the other day, we saw fields of sheep, and you and I were like, oh, look at all those points.
Yeah, that field looks like it's worth so many points. Look at all those sheep.
That field was packed.
Yeah, and then there was a tiny fenced off area with a bunch of sheep in it. And I was like, oh, they better add a stable so they could double their sheep capacity, thinking of Agricola.
Right? And I was all like, ooh, maybe they could add a few barns.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it was so great. So then this next question is for you, Dave.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Feels so special.
Not for Lupin, it's for you. But this comes from Jonathan at _gamingcreations_, and they had asked, Dave, what got you into board games? And what was the first game you played?
So I grew up playing games. I got into chess at a very young age. My uncle taught me, and that was a really fond childhood memory. And the problem is I didn't really have anybody to play with. My dad, I was always trying to get him to play games with me and stuff, and he was more of a computer guy. He showed me some cool stuff. We played computer games together, and that was great.
Your dad's pretty cool. He has that keyboard thing.
My dad's awesome. But I always loved games. So I played Don't Break the Ice, Cooties, whatever that game was.
Cooties?
Hungry Hippos, Candyland, Chutes and Ladders. I loved those games as a kid, and I was always trying to get other kids to play with me and stuff. But games always stuck with me, and as a family, we'd go camping and stuff. We'd always bring card games. Games were always around. Monopoly. I remember hanging out in a tent with a cousin of mine all night playing Monopoly with a flashlight. Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare, you say now. But fast forward years in the future, this was back in 2013. I was at I think it was a Thanksgiving gathering or something, and somebody said, hey, have you played Settlers of Catan? And I remember before that I worked at Target for a short period of time, and I remember seeing this game on the shelf, Settlers of Catan, and there were expansions and stuff. I was intrigued by the idea that a board game could have expansions. Okay. There's something about this game that's expandable, because I love playing computer games growing up, like I said, and I always like getting expansions for computer games. I didn't realize that board games could be on that level. So, played Settlers of Catan, had no idea what was going on, and I got to the end of it, and I thought about it for a few days. That was intriguing. There was this whole negotiating aspect, getting resources, building stuff, and so I asked the person who showed it to me, hey, we can play that game again. So we got together, played it again. At that time, I understood what was going on, and it just kind of blew my mind. Wow. It kind of brought me back to my childhood of being reintroduced to games, but I had no idea that board games could do more. Then I was in a local bookstore, Powell's, which is an awesome store here in Portland. And they had a whole board game section. And I was like, oh, there's all these games.
Powell's has a board game section?
Yeah. And so, because I went looking for Settlers of Catan. Okay, I want to get this game. I want to have it. So when I have friends over and stuff, we can play this game. And then I saw things like Carcassonne, Dominion. And I was like, what is all these games? I had no idea that all this was going on. So I started looking at YouTube videos and going down this rabbit hole of watching reviews, and it just kind of led me down this path of this intrigue that there was this big hobby that existed based off of something I'd been interested in my whole life. So Settlers of Catan, long-winded answer, that's what got me into the hobby. But I've been into gaming in some way, shape, or form my whole life, I would say.
Okay. That is great. I'm happy this was a Dave question, because I don't have any details like that. I mean, I played Monopoly for hours because somebody was just rich, and you played until one of you run out of money, right?
The game is excruciating.
Okay. So this next question, I like. It's cool. I don't know what your answer is going to be, and honestly, I don't know my answer. Wait, just kidding. I think I know my answer. Oh wait, no, I don't know my answer. Okay, so this next one is from at Lichenwood Games, and they ask, if you had to live inside one of your games, which would you choose, and which would you never want to live inside of? I think I would never want to live inside of. I think that one's easier to answer. Ooh, I think I would want to live in Bruges. That's what I would want to live in because it's the Renaissance theme. And I think it'd be really fun to be during that era because I could create cool things and then people would yell at me for being smart as a woman. So that would be fun. Or I could be a jester. I could juggle. I could be part of the Queen's Court, which you could also be a part of on our Patreon. Let me just drop that in there. But that would be really fun. And then I think the one I wouldn't want to live in. Do you have the one you want to live in?
Yeah, it's split between two, and I'm looking, it's funny, I'm peering around you at the shelf to see what it would be. I think it would either be Grand Austria Hotel, because it just, I don't know, there's something about this 1920s time period of this super luxurious hotel in Austria that just seems kind of like, because in the game you have visitors who are writers and artists and stuff, so it just seems like a really intriguing setting. But first rat, being a rat trying to build a spaceship to blast to the cheese moon, like that seems like a cool place to be.
Is this why you keep asking me for a hamster?
You didn't need to publicize that, but okay.
I did. It's here. It's out.
We should get one that looks like Lupin, like same colors and everything. And then
name
take
it what,
all
like
these.
Ramus?
We could. Oh, you know how they have those YouTube videos of the tiny miniature mazes and stuff for hamsters? We can make, and little meals that they make for the hamsters. We could make tiny little versions of board games and make hamster videos. I'm beaming right now.
You are. Lupin would be furious. He would say, "Why don't you make me board games? I was here first."
He would be very salty about that.
Yes. The game that I wouldn't want to live in, which you're going to be like, you love that game, and I'm going to be like, right, but I wouldn't want to live in it, would be Agricola.
I was going to say Agricola too.
Because I'd be too worried about starving.
Yes. Well, I thought, okay, I was going to say Agricola, but then I figured that your response would be, oh, what? Farms are awesome. I have a farm in the Philippines. And
I do have a farm, but I don't starve on it.
Yeah. Starvation farm is not a fun place to be. So I was going to say Agricola, but for one that we haven't played yet, that is on my shelf, that I think that you'd want to less be in would be Antiquity, because it takes place during the plague and is literal starvation and famine in a world that's really trying to...
Isn't Orleans lot?
This is probably a more severe scenario.
Well, I haven't played it yet, so that
of punishment. You like punishment and pain?
You like
Step into the world of Antiquity, which I haven't played yet, but we're going to.
See, I don't know anything about games that I haven't played yet. I just kind of wait for you to tell me about them.
And even then, you don't even hear about it ahead of time. It's just you come home, it's set up on the table, and it's saying you want to play a game.
You say it just like that?
I step out of the shadows.
And you like bicycle.
Yeah.
So this next one is Lupin themed. Not Lupin themed, Lupin related. Somebody had to drop the Lulu in. And
when did you make this question?
No.
Somebody wrote this.
Yeah, so this is from at Almost D&D. They also have a podcast where they have their like very little animals and stuff. So this one is 2 questions, and it is, has Lupin, and you're gonna love this one, ever totally ruined a game by walking all over the board? If so, what game? Walking is a nice statement. I think Lupin likes to jump, scatter, sit.
Okay. I hope anybody who loves the Lupin pictures that we post on Instagram, just, I love the pictures, the outcome. But if you just understand behind the scenes the amount of anxiety that I am going through when he's on the table, because I'm kind of a little particular with my games and handling. I don't love food at the table or Cheetos or things like that, greasy fingers to get on cards, stuff of that nature. And I have the game nice and set up. I have everything in a row, perfectly set. And he jumps on the table and starts walking around his furry tail that we all love, sweeps across the board, and it kind of messes things up. But I have this fear that tiny little pieces are going to get knocked off the table, and then they're going to go into some corner, and I'm not going to be able to find them. It's all this is going through my head, and you're like, just stay back, Dave. Let me get this picture. I'm like,
oh my God, okay.
Yes. I hope that somebody out there is loving and appreciating this picture because I'm sacrificing my anxiety to make this happen. But luckily, he hasn't ruined any games. Like, nothing's actually been ruined.
No, I mean, he's put a piece in his mouth.
What? This is news to me. Maybe you just didn't tell me.
News you could use. There's no nipple marks, so I didn't tell you about it.
Okay. Well, I'll go inspect all my games after this.
Okay. You are more than welcome to. You won't find it. But I would say he didn't ruin anything for good, but he has maybe messed up turns in a game where... So Five Tribes is a good example, where you have all the meeples, and then when you're already moving the meeples around, and then he jumps on, does his cute little tail sweep, and then the meeples move differently, and then you forget where the meeple's placed, and then it's, oh, well, where was this one? And it was like, no, because I had this planned, and now it's like, oh, did you have it planned, or did you just conveniently have it planned after Lupin moved?
This yellow meeple is actually over here, and you're like, very convenient, Dave.
Yeah, dude.
They just happened to be over there that could then be picked up and move 4 spaces to this one with this power move.
That you were specifically looking for.
No, that plan for turns.
Sure. So more so stuff like that, of that nature. And then the second part of this question is, have you ever thought about making your own game? If so, tell us about it. See, I knew you were going to laugh at this because I already see your brain. I see your gears. You're like, let me just say aliens.
We've been talking about this a lot because it's going to happen. It's always been my dream one day to design a game, and I think that we could do it, but what would it be about? So, I believe.
Okay.
The resounding answer.
Oh, here we go.
Doing this motion with my hands.
I know, I see that.
So, we have a lot of games about Egypt.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of games about aliens or extraterrestrial beings. There's no game that I know of yet that is about alien technology or divine extraterrestrial knowledge to help build the Egyptian pyramids or other monolithic creations. You know, the aliens, they were there. We all know it. It is truth. It's factual, irrefutable evidence. Beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Oh my gosh, your eyes are twinkling.
No, but seriously, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, okay, ancient Egypt, but you also play these alien races from other galaxies that are trying to influence human civilization or introduce technologies
like
and stuff.
Legends.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different, but yeah.
Yeah.
But how amazing would that be? Why do I feel like I'm talking like the guy from Ancient Aliens right now?
Because you are talking like that guy.
Oh, but doesn't that sound amazing? Like, I'm confused why that game doesn't exist yet, but maybe the aliens chose me as... I was born to deliver the truth.
I'm not trying to crush your truth.
You're like, Dave, your hair is like poking out now. You're becoming this guy from Ancient Aliens. I have my little pin, my airplane pin.
I want an airplane pin. I want to be an adventurer.
Oh, this is so great. What are we doing recording? We just need to go create this game.
Okay, you could work on it. Well, I made a game, remember? I showed it to you. I made
did.
A wizard game.
You did make a wizard game.
And I had all these little parts. I had the game itself, like the board game itself, and then I had all these different components with it. It was a very in-depth game. It came
in this really big box with all this stuff, and I remember when you were deciding to bestow this upon somebody, we'll call them person, this anonymous person, and as you were going through the box and showing, oh, there's this crate that you can open up, it has this and that, she looked at me and she said, you don't want to take this with you, Dave?
Did she say that?
Yeah. She just laughed.
My feelings are hurt. I might go cry later.
No, it was amazing.
I put so much work into it. I colored them all. I painted them all. I made them all out of clay. This was not where I went and purchased figures.
No, it was handcrafted.
It was beyond handcrafted. There was hours.
Okay, don't even be mad at me.
I even had to restart. I had to rip it apart because the resin didn't cure properly. That it made the board stick together funny. So that I had to redo it. So I put so much work into it.
Why are we whispering?
because I'm angry that she said that. Well, not angry. It's just sad.
She was joking. She was excited.
She wasn't. I doubt she played it.
You don't think so?
Let's call
it. Yeah.
Let's call
How's
it.
that game?
Be like, hey, have you played the game that I made? She'd be like, what game? I'm like, nice. Good talk. Like, okay, bye. Okay. So then, our final questions come from Ramathon Royale, and they have a few questions. So one of the questions that they ask is, do you think tabletop games should evolve with digital integration, so like a mobile version, or does that take away from the experience?
Well, that is a hot button issue.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, some people are either really for it or really against it.
Oh.
I
guess that's cool that I have a different perspective then, because I don't know what anybody likes or doesn't like.
Well, maybe let's start with you then. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay, so I personally, before you getting me into board games, I played video games. Like, I was a big Animal Crossing. Like, I had all the flowers that I pollinated. The Animal Crossing people know. They get it. My museum, stacked.
You had a museum?
Yeah, I had a whole museum. I had dinosaur bones, and I had aquatic life, and I was an entomologist in Animal Crossing. Anybody who's played Animal Crossing gets what I'm saying right now. You gotta play it, Dave. But I played Nintendo like my whole life. Like all the Pokemons, the Marios, the Sonics, like anything that was Nintendo. And then I played Xbox for a little bit. So big video gamer. Played a little RuneScape back in the day. And that felt completely different than when I had played board games with you when I started playing board games. So there had been individuals who have reached out and said, hey, do you have like a board game arena? And I'm like, no. And the reason for that is because personally, I feel that I prefer the board game. Like if I want to play a board game, I want to feel the components. I want to feel like the cards, the playing board, the dice, the meeple. Like I like feeling that. But I'm also that individual that likes the paper book. I don't want the electronic book.
Yeah.
So if I want electronic, that's what I'll go and get electronic. And if I want the paper version, I'll go and get the paper version. But I do like a hybrid if it's like a D&D thing, because there's only 2 of us. So I think it would be really cool to have a dungeon master be electronic.
Okay.
But compatible with the board. So if it says, oh, roll a 2 to whatever, and then you roll these dice, I don't know if this is possible to exist or not, but if the dice can trigger in a way that says, oh yeah, you did roll a 2, and then the dungeon master's like, oh, you get to proceed. Like, I think that would be a cool interactive thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to trying one. I don't know. I actually can't think of many games I've played that had an app integration, and I know of some out there. I just haven't played them, and I'm not opposed to it. I think, when it comes down to it, what attracts me into playing board games is I like the strategic nature, but becoming absorbed into an activity that you share with somebody that doesn't involve anything electronic is appealing to me, because I am staring at screens all day, day job, the grind. So in the evening time, I just like to hang out, play some board games, and not look at a screen. But the nice thing about the app versions or the app integrations, it seems like it would serve a purpose to speed up the gameplay or facilitate some aspects of the game that still are meaningful. So I don't really have a strong opinion. Maybe I'm an anomaly. I'm not strongly opposed. I'm not strongly for it. I'm just, if it's around and a game happens to have it, I would be willing to try it.
That's fair. And then their next question is, what's the one mechanic in tabletop gaming that you think is overused or underrated? I want to say I like spinny things.
Spinny things?
Yeah, that's a mechanic, right? And Bonfire, the spinny thing.
The rondelle.
Yes.
Well, define spinny thing. Do you mean something that spins around, or do you mean moving around a circle to perform actions?
I guess I don't know what a mechanic is. I know this was explained to me a bit ago, but...
So a mechanic or mechanism in a game is some aspect I'll give you some examples like deck building, worker placement, set collection is something within the game that is an aspect of gameplay.
Okay, I like worker placement.
Yes. What about it do you like?
I like that I take it away from you.
Just okay.
It makes it more competitive because you're racing for, like, you may have to bid to be player one or whatnot, but then once it's your turn, or if you can be first somehow, you can then take that action away from somebody.
Yes.
Like, I can always take the wood in Agricola.
Yeah, you always somehow get the wood.
I always get the wood.
And I end up starving.
Yeah.
Getting those begging tokens.
That was
negative
really
points.
funny. You had
Painful.
I think you had, how many, like 5 one game? That was brutal.
It was. But which one do you think, are there any that stand out to you as being overused at this point?
Overused. Card collecting. Is that one?
Set collection?
Set collection.
Yeah, I would say set collection is overused. So this is not a negative statement, but I think worker placement is almost overused, but it's also one that I really like. So I'm not complaining about it. You see it in a lot of games. I would say my favorite mechanism in a game is probably either rondelle, like you were mentioning, the spinny thing in Bonfire is kind of a rondelle.
Okay.
Anything that is circle based that you move around and you kind of plan your actions ahead because you know what's coming. I like that. It's something circular and satisfying. But either that or route building. I really like route building a lot.
Oh, you do like route building.
Mm-hmm. Anytime there's something on the board where I'm connecting cities or connecting pieces, and then at the end of the game I have a lot of stuff on the board and I look and I say, oh, I built that. Like, I'm looking at the shelf. Bus is one of my favorite games. Power Grid, Concordia.
You're naming ones I haven't played.
Turn in Taxis, just to name a few. Hansa Teutonica, excellent game. Those are all ones that you have yet to try that we are definitely going to be playing at some point soon. There's so many games. That's the problem. Some of these...
Is that a problem?
No, it's an abundance of amazingness.
It a good problem to have?
It is. Some of them, though, we could use more than just you and I. It's the first time I want to try, so... Anybody in the Portland area, let us know.
You just invite people.
I don't know.
All right, and then the final question of the episode from them is, how do you think social media has changed the way we discover and play board games? Right off the bat, I could say that prior to playing board games, when we first started Dice Jesters, when I first got into board games with you, I would always show you games and be like, oh, so cute! Oh, look, cute! This one's cute! Like, that's literally everything that I liked. And I was like, look at the pieces! It wasn't me watching gameplay or anything like that. It was just like, oh my gosh, this one has a cat! Oh, you can hear Lupin purring now. Lupin's like, yes! And so I would want to play those games. And it really set a tone that wasn't initially there for me when I came in, because one of the first games was Dominion and Azul. So then when I saw those and you showed me something that was more muted, like San Juan, I was just like, oh, this game's going to be boring. It's not as cute.
There's no
it's
cats.
not as colorful. And then I played it and I was like, ooh, I like it. And then as we went on, you showed me more like monotone games like that, where it's not colorful, it's not adorable, and I still liked them. But I was already given the misconception that I would only like the cute games.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's an interesting point that you make about the game components, because I would say that social media has definitely heightened the focus on really attractive looking components, because they're better to take pictures of. When you're scrolling through social media feed and you see a picture of a game that has really colorful looking pieces that really pop, that's going to attract you and cause you to click on it. Whereas maybe previously you would find out about a game just about hearing one of your favorite designers was coming out with a new game, or a publishing company that comes out with good games, that they're coming out with some new ones, and you discover it that way through their newsletter or something. But I would say now, just social media, browsing through Instagram and those popping up, and then there's almost an aspect of popularity. You start seeing the same games over and over again pop up, and you think, oh, this is probably a really good game because a lot of people are playing it, so it draws you to go check it out. And then also on sites like Board Game Geek, where it has the hotness, and those games that get clicked on or viewed more rise to the top, and then they become more popular. And so I would say it's definitely led to this, you're discovering a game because it has a certain level of popularity, which I guess has always been there, but maybe it's just magnified through social media.
Yeah, that's true, because usually you would hear about it through like friends, or as you said,
just browsing a shelf at a game store. Maybe, it used to be that you would have to have a good looking cover it's like a book. You want to pull it off the shelf and it draws you in that way. So
I know, I always was that person that judged based off the cover, unfortunately.
You still kind of, I mean, maybe not with games anymore,
bad.
But
yeah, not with games, but with books still. With books, I'm just like, oh, this is cute, and then I read it, and I'm like, oh my gosh. It's just like, what was that? These have been really good questions.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoyed it as well, listening to us today. If you would like to send in some questions, perhaps for Season 3, be sure to send them our way. We'd be more than happy to answer them. And then we do have a Patreon. Our Patreon is Dice Jesters. You can also find us on Instagram. Our Instagram is Dice Jesters as well. If you would like to email us about a collaboration or anything, our email is thedicejesters@gmail.com. And we will be returning for Season 3 on April 1st. So yes. April Fool's Day. Do we like go funny. April Fool's, psych? No, just kidding. I don't know.
Game number 1, it says Monopoly 10x10 challenge.
People are really into
That'd be really... Sorry, obviously we're not going to do that now, but...
I don't know, maybe. Who listens this far, you know?
Yeah. Guess we'll find out.
They'll be like, where's Monopoly? You're like, I let you down. It was SpongeBob Monopoly.
Yeah.
So be sure to join us for Season 3 because we would love to have you. And let the Jesters laugh carry on until the next show arrives. Be sure to play all the games with the ones you love.